Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. I had a viewer ask a question. They had inquired whether someone with obsessive compulsive disorder could also be a narcissist. Now, to understand obsessive compulsive disorder, it's a situation where the person's life is generally negatively impacted by their uncontrollable desire to engage in obsessive and compulsive behaviors or thoughts. So it is to such a degree and to such an extent that it is causing an issue in their life. It is causing an issue in their relationships. They are severely burdened by obsessive thoughts, which means constant and chronic thoughts, obsessing, like the Calvin Klein perfume, obsession, where they might obsess about certain things. They might be hooked on one thing, obsessed about religion, obsessed about hand washing, obsessed about fear, obsessed about, that means, constant and ongoing. In other words, it's just kind of like they're on a one-track mind. So, someone who is obsessive thoughts, they're thinking about constantly locking doors, constantly washing their hands. They're constantly thinking about germs to an unhealthy degree. And then their thoughts then direct their behaviors. So, people who constantly are obsessing about germs and they're constantly washing their hands, to 20 and 30 times before they leave the house, and then they go to their car, and then they come back and wash their hands 30 more times. That's obsessive compulsive behavior. And generally, they cannot, their life is extremely disrupted by this pattern, as you can imagine. It takes an extreme amount of time and energy out of their day to fulfill their regimen of obsessive and compulsive thoughts and behaviors. They might engage in these for hours at a time before they're able to kind of like go on with their day and manage their day. And also it gets in the way with relationships, in that sometimes obsessive compulsive disorder can like carry over to another person. I've had it shared with me where, you've got obsessive compulsive parents, and then they, obsessively clean the child, much to the child's discomfort. They might bathe them several times, clean them at inappropriate places, clean them, inappropriately as well, to the point where it's sexually violating. This is obsessive compulsive behavior. And the person is generally made uncomfortable by this. But I do feel that, the obsessive compulsive person, although they're so preoccupied with their obsession and their compulsion, that it oftentimes inhibits their relationships. So in other words, as you can imagine, if you're constantly fearing about washing your hands, you're not thinking about planning your next trip to Hawaii and engaging in a carefree manner. So it limits their ability and it limits their energy to be freed up for a relationship. Now, the difference between a narcissist is someone who, lacks very little empathy and feeling and consideration for people. And they also, they're always only about satisfying their own needs. So even though the obsessive compulsive person is always kind of like satisfying their obsession and their compulsions, whatever that might be, some people shop obsessively, compulsively, or things of this nature. People can get over this, generally with some treatment, and those symptoms can lessen, and then they're enjoying a more carefree life. Now, the narcissist, generally, it's a personality disorder, and generally, they don't feel anything is wrong with them, and, oftentimes, treatment and therapy will not really help these people. So in terms of a comorbidity, you see more anxiety and depression symptoms being more comorbid with this population, versus like lacking empathy. I think it's more of a compulsion where they absolutely have to do something. And it's just, it's not, I think the obsessive compulsive person is more forced to engage in this sort of type of this type of behavior than just doing it to have control over people, where the narcissist all their behavior is not obsessive and compulsive. It's just how they live their life. It's their personality. They want to have, they want to dominate. And it's not necessarily a compulsion or an obsession. It basically, a narcissist, their life is made functional by their ability, they feel their ability to dominate and control others and hurt others and exploit others. So their life is actually, what they would consider very functional. And I would say they don't really have obsession, compulsion sort of issues, generally. I mean, sure, there can be people out there with both, but generally, it's kind of you're one or the other. So I hope this insight helps. If you have any other personal experience, please feel free to share in the comment section below. Peace and harmony with you here today. Please do share and please do subscribe and help those people who are in need. Have a beautiful day.